During COVID, remember that? Wasn't that fun? During COVID, I spent a lot of time by myself. A lot of time alone. I lived alone during the vast majority of COVID in a one-bed flat here in the city. I worked from home for the vast majority of time. My corporate desk job set up the old home office. Daily routine for me, like so many of us during that time, was wake up, roll out of bed, lug my body a few meters over to a desk sitting in my flat, sat down, did my job for the day, and then clocked off, transported my body a couple other meters to the couch or to the kitchen, and then eventually to the bed. And that really was a lot of the routine during those times. It was a strange arc of time because early on in the pandemic, I think, like a lot of us again, there was a sense of ease and slowness that came from that life. Didn't have to commute, could wake up later, I could have my day more on my own terms. If I didn't want to deal with certain things, be in certain environments, there was no real issue because there was only just one very controlled environment. Crucially, there was pretty much no one really around, way less people in my life during that period of time. There was a lot of alone time. In the early stages of that lockdown period, those multiple lockdown periods, I really enjoyed it. After a year or two, that feeling started to very much subside and the loneliness factor creeped in massively. It's not like I was living in isolation during any of that time. It's not like I never caught up with friends or was completely isolated, but relative to kind of a normal level, things had really bottomed out. Nowadays, of course, that very much is a thing of the past. I work full time. I'm out pretty much every day in an office, surrounded by people, all of that kind of thing. And the temptation, as the balance swings from one end to the other, is to crave, in many ways, that same sense of isolation and tranquility again, because we equate those two things together. It's like if I could have more space, I'd feel more at peace. I'd feel more centered with myself. And that kind of solace is what we deep down want when we go back to having a hectic normal life. But every now and then, in this kind of lifestyle nowadays, I will have a few days at a time, or I'll go through a week, kind of like this one, where the temptation to isolate really starts to creep back in again. There's this sense of life's hectic, maybe I'm stressed, maybe I feel overwhelmed, or whatever. Even if it's just a minor kind of thing, like we can't really identify why, it's just one of those weeks. And the temptation to isolate and shut down and kind of be back on our island by ourselves really starts to kick in. The funny thing though is that when I start to get a taste of that, if I start to withdraw, you kind of don't make yourself as social for a few days. You go back in your shell under the guise of thinking that that's going to be a good thing for you, that's going to be nurturing, that's going to be self-care. What happens then? The feeling of hollowness creeps in, the loneliness. And so a pretty vicious cycle can start, I think, because the feeling of loneliness creates more loneliness and more stress, which makes us want to withdraw more because of the negative emotion. Where in reality, in so many ways, the thing that we need most in those moments isn't to retreat, isn't to play it safe. It's actually to do the complete opposite of that. It's to completely lean back into people, back into environments, surround ourselves with people, and re-engage with life. Because it's the intensity, the unknown, the unpredictability that in and of itself provides novelty, surprise, fun. If we could get all of those things by ourselves, if we could fill up our cup without the input of others, without the unpredictability, having people make us think, laugh, feel, seeing differences between us and others, seeing commonalities between us and others, the more that we are separated from people, the more certain and known and confined our experience becomes. And it may be that the idealized expectation of that is that that will give us peace and tranquility, and we'll be able to enjoy being in ourselves, we'll be able to enjoy being in our own skin. That may be so for a fleeting moment, but unfortunately, my friend, that's not real life. Nothing good happens ultimately as long as we're in that mode. It's just self-preservation, and it's at odds with the fundamental force of life, which is that shit happens in motion. Shit happens in real time. We can't expect to live the life that we want if we're sitting on the sidelines all of the time. And we can't let the excusable and understandable feelings of anxiety and stress preclude us from dancing that dance. It's just not how it works, baby. In thinking that we get to have both, that we can live a life of determining everything on our own terms, of having certainty and predictability and also novelty at the same time, it's a very tough balance to get right. It's a very tough balance to get right. And therein lies the great irony, which is that the more security we chase, the more insecure we feel. And so, the only thing we can really do about that is to stop chasing the security, give in to the insecurity, and realize that in letting go, that is the only thing that allows us to break out of the false belief that we can create a secure palace for ourselves in our lives and just get to sit in there and hope that the world will be secure to us and we'll be able to have an enjoyable life on our own terms. It doesn't work that way, my friend. Also, of course, I'm at Buckingham Palace. So that's a metaphor. Real life happens outside the palace walls, my friend. Thursday night. Have a good one. Peace.